food fans, I'm so excited today because I'm going to make a Bostin cream pie. It's like this sponge cake with a creamy filling and covered in chocolate ganache. My cake senses are going ah! So let's start with the sponge. Here I've got 250 grams of self-raising flour and 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder. You can use plain flour for this, but you'll also need to double the amount of baking powder. There's 250 grams of butter at room temperature cut into small pieces, 250 grams of castor or superfine sugar, 5 eggs and a teaspoon of vanilla flavouring. Put the butter and sugar in a bowl, then beat until lovely and creamy. And after a few minutes you should end up with this light coloured and really creamy stuff. Now beat in the eggs one at a time. Make sure that each egg is really well beaten in before you add the next. Do 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 do. So if you've done it properly, you should end up with this really lovely creamy mixture. If you haven't done it properly, you won't. Now add in the vanilla flavouring and beat that in too. Then sift in the flour and baking powder and fold it all together. Now what you want is a nice creamy mix that just drops off the spoon. That's a bit too thick, so add in milk a tablespoon at a time until you get the consistency you need. Oh, there it goes. That took me about 4 tablespoons of milk. How much you need really depends on the size of your eggs. I'm now going to split the mixture between 2 8-inch cake tins that I've greased, and I've lined the bottom with greaseproof paper. Spread the batter out into each of the tins. You can use a single deep cake tin if you like and cut the resulting cake in half. You just need to bake it for a bit longer, that's all. Right, so we're ready to bake at 160 fan oven, 180 normal oven for around about 35 minutes. And when they're baked, they should be a nice brown colour and a little springy to the touch. Now leave them for 10 minutes before you get them out of the tin. The next thing to do is to make some crème pâtissière for the filling. That's the cream in Bostin cream pie. Now for the crème pâtissière, I've got 125 ml of milk, 125 ml of double cream or heavy whipping cream, 3 egg yolks, 50 grams of castor or superfine sugar, 15 grams of plain flour and a vanilla pod. Or you could use half a teaspoon of vanilla flavouring. Now essentially I'm going to make a kind of custard here. If you're really lazy, you could of course whack out the custard powder or even a packet of vanilla pudding. But I'm going to assume that you're not a pleb. Start by carefully splitting the vanilla pod down its length. Put the milk and cream in a small saucepan, toss in the vanilla pod, then bring gently to the boil. Once it comes to the boil, turn off the heat and leave it to stand for 10 minutes. Once your cake has been liberated from its tin, put it on a wire rack and leave it to cool completely. In a large bowl, beat together the egg yolks and the sugar. Beat together well for a few minutes. And after a few minutes, the mixture should have paled up a bit. Now I'll beat in the flour. Now take the vanilla pod out of your milk and cream mix and use a knife to scrape all the seeds out. Put them in the milk mix. I've split it open. Just scrape all these lovely flavourful seeds out the pod. Now give it a good whisk to disperse all the seeds. Then add the milk and cream a little bit at a time into the egg yolk sugar mix. If your milk's too hot or you add too much, you're going to make scrambled egg in here. Not desirable. When it's all nicely mixed and fluid, Pour it back in the saucepan, then pop it back on the stove and heat gently with a whisking until it thickens. I've got to the point now where it's really quite thick. I'm going to turn off the heat, pour the mixture into a bowl, use a rubber spatula to get it all out. Just give it one last mix. You can see it's almost gelatinous. I'm now going to put some plastic film on the top, actually touching this mixture. And the idea of this is that it stops a skin forming on your newly and lovely created Crème Pâtissière. Now leave this for a few hours to cool completely. When everything's nice and cold, take one half of the cake and put it upside down on a plate so I've got a nice flat surface here. Peel the film off the Crème Pâtissière and scoop it onto the cake. Then spread it as evenly as you can across the cake. Just leave a little gap at the edges. Well, I think that's about as even as I'm going to get it. Now I'll pop on the other half of the cake, flat side down. Squiggle it a bit so that it pushes the cream out a little bit. That's pretty good. So now I need a chocolate ganache to go on the top. In this pan I've got 150 ml of double cream or heavy whipping cream, and I'm just bringing it very gently to the boil. Once it comes to the boil, turn off the heat and add in 150 grams of chocolate. This is dark chocolate. You could use bittersweet chocolate, but it needs to be cooking chocolate. And then stir it in. And what you'll end up with is this lovely dark chocolate ganache. Now just leave it for about 5 minutes to cool a little. So after about 5 minutes, gently pour the ganache onto the cake. And if it drizzles down the side a bit, that's no problem. Just adds to the look and feel of the cake. Now pop this in the fridge to help the ganache set. The sponge is lovely and light, the cream is delicious, and the chocolate on the top. Oh, this cake has got about a bazillion calories in it, but I don't care because I'm going to have one lovely thin slice and then force feed the rest to my friends so they can all get fat. Do follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, and do visit my website titlysbusykitchen.com, where you'll find hundreds of recipes from all around the world, including many more recipes for cake and chocolate cake. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Good